I'm Leanna Morris, and I'm going to be doing Chapter 3, Social, Moral, and Emotional Development. Views of Personal and Social Development. These are seen in stages. We have several stereotypes related to these stages, like teenagers being rebellious or terrible twos. We're going to be looking at Erik Erikson, which is an adaptation of Freud, and it is a psychosocial theory because he uses psychology to evaluate the social development. Erikson stages. Each stage is based on psychosocial crises which need to be resolved. Most people solve these and move on, though not all do, which is why you have people that have midlife crisis. It's 8 stages. Stage 1 is trust versus mistrust. This is birth to 18 months. Developing a basic trust in the world, and the mother is usually the one to be the determining factor in this stage. And that's simply because the mother is usually the one that's the nurturing factor in the child's life. Anyone can be that for a child. It's basically about making an attachment to someone and learning that you can trust the world. Stage 2 is autonomy versus doubt. 18 months to 3 years. This is when children start striving towards independence. Before now, they've been extremely dependent on their parents. And as they grow, they're learning to be more independent, and this often clashes with what the parents want. So I said that parents need to be flexible and allow their children to also be independent and explore. Stage 3, initiative versus guilt. This is 3 to 6 years. Exploration of social and physical environment. And parents must be flexible and allow child to explore. This kind of goes with the one before, because the child has been so dependent on the parents that they don't want to let the child explore for themselves. But if we don't allow those children to explore and get more independent, then they're going to feel guilty that they want to. Stage 4 is industry versus inferiority. If you'll notice, this is 6 to 12 years. This is when most students have started school. There's a huge expansion because they've started school. They're around all these peers and teachers, and they have so many more expectations, and they are feeling a different kind of success versus failure when it comes to school, when it comes to athletics, when it comes to their peer groups, their clubs. They're in an entire new world. This is less influenced by the parents and more influenced by their peers and their teachers. Stage 5, identity versus role confusion. These kids are 12 to 18 years old. They're really asking, who am I? From their birth until now, their parents have told them who they are. They have lived their life based on their parents' beliefs, and they are starting to have to come up with who they think they are and how they believe and who they want to be. They start turning away from their parents and towards their peers. Stages 6 through 8. I put these all on one because these stages we don't usually see as much in our students. Most likely we're in one of these stages. Intimacy versus isolation is young adulthood. During this stage, you really decide whether you're going to seek companionship and want to start a family, or whether you would just rather grow your life on your own. Generativity versus self-absorption, middle adulthood. This one was talking about growing your family, but also it said that as teachers, we are growing the next generation because we're teaching them. So there's more than one way. If you choose not to have a family, you can still go through the stage in a positive way by reaching out and growing your community. Integrity versus despair, late adulthood. This is really talking about acceptance of how your life has gone versus regretting a lot of your decisions. Views of moral development. This also changes over time. It's in stages as well. This is like a right versus wrong. How do we know if it's right or wrong? What's the punishment going to be? Does it matter if there is a reason behind the actions? We're going to be talking about Kohlberg and Piaget. Piaget's theory of moral development. There's heteronomous morality, which is inflexible, and the punishment is a result of the actions. So it doesn't matter if you had good intentions. You get punished based on what happened as a result of your actions. And then there's autonomous morality, which is flexible, and it's influenced by the intentions. It matters if you had good intentions or if it was an accident. Kohlberg's stages of moral reasoning. These are based on moral dilemmas. The book gave an example of a woman who had cancer, and her husband stole the medicine because it was too expensive, and the person that created the medicine would not let him pay it over time. It has 6 stages and 3 levels. Pre-conventional level, stage 1, punishment and obedience. The results determine the response. So in this one, it wouldn't matter that the woman had cancer. The husband stole it, so he needed to be punished. Stage 2, it's based on personal gain. Someone that had something to gain from the man stealing the medicine, say his wife, would say that that was not something that needed to be punished. This one's based on if you get anything out of what happened. Stage 3 is good boy, good girl. This is based on what pleases others. This one also has to do with a lot with perspective. Are you trying to please the wife with cancer, or are you trying to please the authorities? Stage 4 is law and order, maintaining social order. That one's pretty clear. That was obviously against the law. He stole, so he needed to be punished. Stage 5 is social contract. It can be changed for the good of society. This means that if this is something that's going to benefit society as a whole, then it's okay. And stage 6 is universal ethical principle. And this one is based on like an individual basis. It's very abstract, and it's based on ethical principles and your morality and whether you think that the intentions were good enough that it doesn't need to be punished. Social and emotional development. I separated these based on how the book did on the school levels. In preschool, children are learning to play together. They are first, a lot of the time, this is the first interactions they've had with peers. They have not been in a setting with this many children their age before, so they're learning how to get along and how to play together. The book gave an example of pro-social behavior, which some kids come into preschool having. It's based on a lot on their home life and how they were raised. If they're kind, if they know how to share, and things like that. And you have solitary, parallel, cooperative, and associative play. Solitary is by itself. Parallel, children are playing side by side but not together. Cooperative, they're interacting a lot more and going towards a common goal together. And associative, they are kind of interacting but not as much with as cooperative. Elementary years, they're learning a lot about self-concept and self-esteem. This goes back to a while ago when we were talking about them being in that new thing where they had failure versus success, and they're learning how, if they think they're accepted or not. Social comparison, they're comparing themselves to their peers and seeing if they feel like they measure up. And then high school years, you have the reflectivity. They're trying to decide who they are, how they feel about themselves. That goes along with identity. James Marcia has 4 different types of what's going on when they're trying to find their identity. Foreclosure, they're really not seeking it at all. Identity diffusion, they've decided it doesn't matter. They're not looking into that. Moratorium, they're kind of in between, still looking at options. And achievement, obviously, they've decided. This is heavily influenced by their peers, and it had a large amount of risk, like pregnancies, STDs, along with being in high school. And I believe that is the end. Thank you.